Welcome to CRE Cafecito, the CCIM Miami Podcast, where commercial real estate insights are served with a shot of Miami flavor. Hosted by CCIM's own Ruben Ruban, better known as Ruben the Cuban, this show brings you conversations with top professionals, CCIM fundamentals made simple, and the latest South Florida market moves. Each episode delivers practical nuggets of wisdom you can put to work right away in your commercial real estate business. Now, grab your cafecito and let's fuel success in commercial real estate.
Hello, and welcome to this episode of CRE Cafecito. Today, we have the one and only Luis Perez with TrueView Inspection. So we want to say, hey, thank you, Luis, for sponsoring this with TrueView and sponsoring this episode. And I'm sure we're going to have a great conversation here to learn a little more about you, a little about the industry or the side of the industry in which you provide the services on and the inspection world, and hopefully take some nuggets away that we could put to practice in our business as commercial real estate practitioners. So welcome, Luis. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Ruben. It's a pleasure to be on this podcast with you.
Absolutely. Well, thank you. I always like to start kind of like giving the audience a little bit of background on who you are and so forth. So if you don't mind, just take us back a little bit. You know, who was Luis as a kid? Where did you grow up? What you like to do? And sort of thing before we got into the current modern day professional that you are.
So I am Cuban American. I always say that I am Americano criado a lo cubano. So I am
I like that.
The Cuban way. And I was born and raised here in Miami. I didn't play sports when I was young. My sport was fishing. I always did a lot of fishing from when I was young, and that's carried over into my adult life, where I'm an active and avid fisherman of game fish. And yeah, today I am married. I have two beautiful daughters. I have a 13-year-old girl that acts like she's 17. And I have a 10-year-old girl that acts like she's 13. You know, the modern struggles of, millennial parent.
Well, so you grew up here in Miami. So you've been able to see a lot of the transformation, especially over the last 10, 15 years here in Miami, and the real estate and how the landscape has changed and how all the growth has happened here. How did you get into, so growing up in Miami, get into the inspection world and so forth, and start launching your own company?
Sure. So I, being as a kid, and my dad came from Cuba in the 1980 Mario boat lift. And my dad didn't really know, my dad came from a town in Cuba with no education. So he came here to this country all by himself at 21 years old. To this day, my dad still doesn't know how to read or write. He never learned how to read or write. But because of the lack of education that they had, he was forced to work the crops in the fields when he was young as a kid until he came to this country. And so my dad, when he came here, he started working in construction. So he was working and doing masonry work in Key Biscayne, building all those buildings that were built in the 80s in Key Biscayne. And then from there, he transitioned to just doing construction on his own. And, we grew up in a household where my parents couldn't afford to send me to a summer camp or send me to vacation during the summer when school was over. So when school was over, all my friends went to summer camp. I went to construction camp.
Nice.
7 years old, just every summer. I hated. I was that one kid that I hated when school was over. I was like, no, please, just more school. I begged to go to summer school because my brother and my sister stayed home with my mom, and the oldest, they sent me to construction camp. So I used to have to work with my dad in construction. And, you look at it and you look where I'm at today and the knowledge that I have, it goes back to those days, everything that I learned. And it's like your journey always prepares you for your final destination. And I learned that. So, since I was doing construction my whole life, every summer and everything, when I graduated high school, I said, you know what, I'm going to be a general contractor, because I used to tell my dad, Dad, I wasn't meant to work with my hands. I was meant to work with this, with my brain. And even when I was young, I used to be there and I used to be like, Dad, one day I'm going to be your boss. He's like, good, I want you to be. So I realized that my dad had struggles with being able to do permitted work and having to pay general contractors to pull permits for him. And I remember just, when you have a construction company, you have to have signage on the vehicle with license numbers. So he would have to pay a general contractor to put his license number on our van and et cetera. So always hiding. And I said, you know what, Dad, I'm going to fix this for you. So once I graduated school, I said that was my first mission. And it took me a couple of years, but at 21 years old, I got my GC license, a general contractor's license.
Nice.
And I remember that going there and doing the test, passing the exam, and guys were so upset that they were saying, I've been 25 years in the industry. How could this young puppy, they called me a young puppy, be able to pass the exam? And I was like, well, this young puppy's pretty smart. So I was able to open up a company, qualify a company for my dad, and set my dad up the right way for him to be able to continue working and operating under my license. And then from there, I got into just construction management. I started off just as concrete foreman on commercial jobs. Then I started working. I was able to get out of the sun, and I became an expert in finish, in the punch out experts in commercial residential buildings. So then back in 2017, I started realizing, I said, you know what? It's I got into, in 2015, I got like a side gig doing inspections for insurance companies. Mm-hmm. So the insurance companies to hire us to go out there and do home inspections. And I said, and you needed to be a general contractor to do that. It was called the Citizens Reinspection Program. So I realized, hey, you know what? This whole inspection thing is a nice little, it's a pretty cool gig. And then I said, you know what? It's a lot easier to criticize people's work than to do the work yourself. So I decided to start TrueView in 2017. And we started doing residential property inspections. We came to the market with some fresh to market ideas. And today we're one of the largest inspection companies in the entire state of Florida.
Wow. That's an amazing story. I know I don't think I've ever heard the whole story that way. So thanks for sharing. I mean, just if we say goodbye and we stop right here, that's just inspiration for the day, man. So, hey, thanks for sharing. Cause I'm sure there's a lot of people not only come from family, like my, similar first generation, and I was born here in the States, but family come from Cuba and to have that story, like the struggles that they went through to kind of help set us up to try to move forward and do better. And we're trying to do the same for the next generation. It's an amazing, inspirational story. So thanks for sharing that. You opened up TrueView, and now you're like one of the largest inspection companies in the state of Florida. That's not an easy feat right there in a matter of less than 10 years, it sounds like. So you've had some really quick, I'm sure part of it's like your natural marketing geniuses. You're just a natural, like every time, and I should mention, you're part of our CCIM board. And so every time I know I've heard you, kind of talk and give the little 30-second elevator pitch of TrueView, everybody loves it because you bring such energy to whenever you speak. How did you grow so fast?
Well, it wasn't no accusation. We grew the old school way. Because look, the inspection industry, Ruben, there's not a lot of companies in the state of Florida that has, more than 5 inspectors. It's a very difficult industry to grow because, this is mainly one trucks who run this, who do inspections, and really because there's not enough margins in inspections. When you think about in a real estate transaction, the inspector is the one that makes the least amount of money in the whole transaction. The lenders make thousands of dollars, the realtors make thousands of dollars, title makes thousands of dollars, and the inspectors make a few $100. Mm-hmm. So the way that I see it is, we're out here selling dollar menu and burgers. I'm selling burgers and hot dogs. So you have to really market to the masses in order to be able to be profitable. And and everything was done just one goal at a time, right? It's everyone wants to get to the finish line and get to a certain place. And you have your eyes on that for too long, but the only thing you got to focus on is the task that you have at hand right now and execute. And a lot of people lack the ability to execute. And, I thank God that I have that ability to execute. So, one of my first goals was, okay, I want to be able to get off the field. There's inspectors that there's so many home inspection company owners that I know that they have 4 or 5 inspectors and they're still doing inspections. They're still doing it. And I haven't done an inspection since 2019. And to me, I consider that one of the biggest accolades, because when I was doing inspections every day, doing 500 inspections a year, there was no way that I ever thought that, hey, I'm going to be able to get off the field, right?
Wow.
The first thing is, okay, what did I do? Well, number one, the first thing you always have to do is, if you don't know something, you got to go out there and learn it. I knew how to do inspections. I didn't know how to grow as a business owner, right? And be able to know that. So when you don't know it, you have to find it. So my 13-year-old daughter now, she's like, hey, I want to get into martial arts. I want to learn martial arts. And she wanted to get into that. I said, okay, let's do it. So I wasn't going to be here and say, I'm going to teach you how some karate. I'm going to teach you how to fight. I said, oh, you want to learn karate? I'm going to take you to a karate place for you to learn karate. So if you want to learn to grow your business, you have to find someone to help you grow your business. So I got into coaching. And I am a big believer in coaching, because coaching teaches you the skills that you need. And most people just lack the accountability. So I got into coaching, and I got into a coaching program that taught me how to grow as a business owner. And I grabbed the instructions that I was given, and I executed on a weekly basis. And little by little, I remember that my coach told me one day, you will never be able to hit $1 million in sales until you get off the field. And I looked at him and I said, what do you mean? I do 500 inspections a year. I just did in 2018, 500 inspections. How am I supposed to get off the field? How do I replace that? And it's about just learning to trust the process and trust the system. There's people that have gone before you and paved the way, and you got to learn to trust it and believe in yourself. And I'm somebody that's always going to bet on myself and believe on myself. So it was a lot of coaching, a lot of sacrifice. I'll never forget my first year doing home inspections. I made $38,000 in the year. I went through like a financial struggle that was great. And but I wasn't focused on my current situation. I wasn't thinking about where I currently was. I only kept my focus on where I needed to be. What was the next level? What was the next step? And with that, I learned how to create systems and processes, because marketing is the easy part, Ruben. That part's easy. Most people say, oh no, marketing. Yeah. Generating leads, marketing is the easy part. It's the business aspects that's the hard part. It's establishing training programs, systems, and protocols. It's hiring. It's managing employees. It's handling finances. All of those things that really make it difficult.
Yeah. In the commercial real estate coaching world, one of the best that's out there is Rod Santomassimo's. And he talks a lot about two things. That a lot of brokers that, we're in essence, we're all running our own little business.
Of course.
And whether we're an independent shop where just, one person, you're running the whole thing, or you're part of a franchise or part of under an umbrella, you're 1099, you're running your own business. And then he's like, there's a lot of people that spend time working in the business, so trying to generate the leads and the marketing and so forth, but they fail to work on the business, which is the processes and the steps and the planning and so forth. So we often, some of my colleagues and I, we always talk about, hey, let's have a plan to work on the business. And then, this is on the business stuff. And then there's in the business that, hey, what's that pipeline looking for like? And, how are we working with these clients and so forth? Tell us a little bit some of the challenges on the commercial side that you're seeing. Some of the commercial inspection rules have changed over the last couple of years. We've had some things here in Miami that has elevated some of the needs for inspection. So maybe you can help us, give us some shed some light on that, because there's still, I would imagine, some people out there that they may have an idea, but maybe you can help clarify some of that stuff.
Sure. So because of the incident that happened with a chaplain Chaplain Towers in Surfside, that tragedy that occurred. And it's unfortunate that a tragedy has to occur in order for changes to make, right? It's normally like the doctor has to say, hey, Ruben, your cholesterol is extremely high, for you to say, oh my goodness, I need to get on a diet. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of what happened there. So the state came up with a milestone program. But the thing is that this program had already been in place by Miami-Dade County since 1978, because believe it or not, the Chaplain Tires was not the first building to collapse in Miami. In 1978, the DEA building in Biscayne collapsed. And because of that, Miami-Dade started the recertification program. So because of what happened at Surfside, there were changes. So the state adopted a milestone program. So this milestone program are for apartment and co-op buildings, 3 stories or more, over 4 stories or more in height. They have to do a recertification inspection, a structural and electrical inspection by an engineer every 40 years. But so now the entire state has adopted that. Okay. But after the entire state adopted that, Miami-Dade County has been doing this since 1978. The only difference is that Miami-Dade County was doing the apartment and co-op buildings and commercial buildings as well. So after what happened, Broward County adopted the same program. So now these type of inspections are done in Broward County. And then the timing changed, right? So before, these inspections were done at 40 years. Now buildings that are within 3 miles from the coast have to do these inspections at 25 years. And then every 10 years after that, it's called the recertification inspection. And then every other building that's farther than 3 miles from the coast has to do these inspections at 30 years, and then at every 10-year intervals after that. These inspections are a structural and electrical inspection in order to certify the building for the next 10 years for its use. I think that this program is very good based off what we see out there. And I love how Miami-Dade County kind of always sets the standard for building codes. So if you look at, you have the South Florida building code, and then Miami created the high velocity hurricane zone building code. So Miami set the standard. So the state does these inspections only for co-op buildings, 4 stories or higher. Miami-Dade County is doing this for all buildings, all commercial buildings, and all properties that are 3 units or more, whether it's 2 stories, 3 stories, warehouses. So if you're a property manager, if you are a commercial building owner, an investor, and you have a triplex, that triplex needs to be certified every 25 years or every 3 years, depending on the distance that they are from the coast. So if you think about it, Ruben, a triplex, is it considered commercial or residential?
Residential.
Residential. Anything that's 5 units or more is considered commercial. So if you look at it, they are doing this for 3 units or more. So the only people who are excluded are single family properties and duplexes. But the moment you get into 3 units or higher, whether it's 1 story, 2 stories, whatever it is, these buildings need to be recertified. And all commercial buildings, so warehouses, storefronts, gas stations, all of these types of buildings are being certified, have to be recertified. And when you look at this, it is based, when we see what we see out there, I could see why this is something so important to be done. Because the last thing is that you want to be at a gas station pumping gas, and those canopies at the gas station, they're done with steel beams. And for some reason, I've seen a lot of places where they put additional weight on those beams. Those beams are corroded and just falling apart because of the rust and corrosion. And imagine, God forbid, you have your wife at a gas station pumping gas, and part of that canopy collapses on her. You know, those type of things happen. And that's why I like what Miami-Dade County has done, and that Broward adopted it too. They adopted the same standards. If you see, not too long ago, we saw that there was a nightclub in Dominican Republic that collapsed.
Yep.
People lost their lives there. The entire building structure collapsed. And you look at this as if we just go by the milestone program that the state of Florida adopted, it's only for apartment buildings or co-op buildings. But so gas stations, warehouses, arcades, movie theaters, all of these buildings, they don't have to have a recertification inspection. But here in Miami-Dade and Broward, we could rest assured that all of these buildings are being inspected by licensed professional engineers and being recertified. And if there are issues with the properties, repairs are being done.
Wow. I did not realize that. And I'm sure a lot of people are going to be, because like we heard something about it and, you get some sort of little tidbits about it, but thank you very much for clarifying that. Is there any indication or that you've heard that, hey, is the state going to raise the bar as well, or are they kind of staying, at where they're at for just the co-ops and multifamily?
I haven't heard any indication of them being having to change it. I know that I was even back in February, I had the privilege of speaking at the Miami Realtors Association Condo Summit. And I spoke on the difference between the Miami-Dade recertification program and the milestone program. And there were state representatives there, and nothing was spoken about making changes to this program. So at least we know that here in Miami-Dade and Broward, when you walk into a commercial building, whatever type of building it is, you could have the peace of mind that chances are that these buildings have been certified and inspected. And there's even a portal where you could go online to research and see if these buildings have been approved or not approved, or if they're in violation or not in violation. Because a lot of people ignore the notices, and then these buildings get sent to unsafe structures.
Right.
And the beauty is that if you just go on Google and you put Miami-Dade Building Recertification Portal, as a real estate professional, as an investor, or as just as a regular consumer, and maybe you could find a way of maybe putting the link to that.
I'm just writing it down. Exactly. Recertification. Yeah.
So that Miami-Dade has created a great portal where you could put the property address of a building, whatever building it is, and it tells you if the building is due for recertification or not. It tells you whether the building has been approved or disapproved. And it also tells you if they're in violation, if they have ignored the notice or haven't gotten these inspections done. So if you are a real estate professional, whether you're a lender, whether you're a realtor, or just an investor, and you're thinking about purchasing a property or investing in a property, this is a good place to start, to be able to look in that portal, be able to see. And now you know if you're going to have challenges with this recertification, because I know that lenders if buildings are due and they haven't done the recertification, they're not lending the money until these recertifications are done. And then in Broward doesn't have a specific portal for recertification. However, you could find all of that information on their online building permit search. So you could search and see if they've pulled permits for the recertification or not.
I had a property I sold a couple of years ago. The people that were running it, the daughters, they had not done the inspection for a long time, and we're in the middle of due diligence and so forth, and then they get served with the notice and the lien from the city. Well, I have to go through the process to get the engineering, get the certification done, and so forth, and it's kind of running against the clock because we're coming up against the wall for closing, and literally 2 days or like a week after it got clear, we're like, oh, we're in the clear. They get served with a second one because that one was for 10 years previously. And so now the one that was about a year, or so, just about to come up on it, they served them again for that one. So it was a race to the end, literally days before closing, to try to get that all cleared up. But it can be very challenging and nerve-wracking, especially for deals. So yes, thanks for the resource that I had not known about the Miami-Dade recertification portal. What are what's the long view in the next 3 to 5 years? It's a big, broad question, but I guess I'm just getting, Lewis's perspective of Miami real estate market over the next several years, whether it's on the financial side of growth or on the inspection side or, the building construction side. Well,
I think the main thing is these not every building have gotten these recertification inspections done. Quite frankly, there's not enough engineers to be able to do all of the buildings that need to get done in Miami and in the state. I mean, even when you look at, I just downloaded a list of every building that still hasn't done it, and it's like thousands of buildings. And I think that the first step is to really recertify these buildings and make sure they're safe. A lot of building owners, especially with like smaller buildings, that that's their investment, their business per se. They have a lot of challenges whenever we have to go there and say, hey, look, repairs need to be done. But repairs need to be done because there's people who are occupying these buildings, and the main thing is to keep everyone safe. I remember that we went to do a recertification at a commercial property, and the electrical system was like an original electrical system from the 70s. Federal Pacific, I mean, it was in really bad shape. The units were overheating, and we're trying to explain to the building owner, you need to completely upgrade your building electrical, main disconnects, panels, everything. Like, this is not up to code, and it's unsafe. And the guy was just fighting us. And while the guy is fighting us, it's funny. It's like, like the sign from God. Oh yeah. And we're talking to the guy, out of nowhere, you just hear, whoa! And we're like, whoa! And when you look, it was right. We were right there talking about the electrical system, and the main disconnect blew up.
Oh my God!
Right there in front of us while we were talking. So it was like, there you go, sir. You see what I'm talking about? So there's a big need to be able to get these buildings safe. So I think that's something very important, and it's a big challenge for the county. A lot of building owners are ignoring the notices. They're not getting them done. They're waiting to the last second. So I know the county has gone through a lot with like enforcements and things like that. And then on the other side is everyone is here just waiting for kind of interest rates to go down, to spike a boom back into the market. I think that you sow, as a business owner, you sow seeds for many years, and you wait for moments like that where interest rates go down, where things become easier for buyers to be able to buy, in order to capitalize and reap the harvest that you sowed years ago. Mm-hmm. And that's what we're doing, and that's what we're waiting. I know that in the past we had a drop in interest rates, and property values kind of went skyrocketed, and housing became unaffordable because of that, and buildings. But right now we have a lot of inventory to kind of sustain that an interest rate drop, and be able to put buyers on the market to be able to purchase, whether it is residential, commercial properties, multifamily, investment, whatever the case may be. So, I think that as real estate professionals, we're all just sitting there waiting on the sideline, like, let's go. Yeah. Just watching the clock, just waiting for that bell to ring to jump in the ring.
Well, last question, actually, now that, as you were kind of talking about, it sounds like there's a lot of deferred maintenance. Do you have either preferred vendors, or do you help them something? Since you have a GC background, you may be able to at least give some recommendations or something like that. Or is that something you don't get into?
Yeah, look, Ruben, that and people always get asked that question. So yes, I'm a GC. I don't practice general construction. I own an inspection company. And I feel that when you go to a property and I tell you, hey, Ruben, this is bad, that's bad, that's bad, that's bad, and this needs to get fixed, that needs to get fixed, and here, I could fix it for you. It takes away the integrity of the inspection, because now there's a monetary value. I'm not going there to rightfully and justly tell you what's wrong with this property for you to make an informed decision or take steps afterwards. I'm going there with a financial interest in mind. And then I know that that's a lot of custom practice for engineering firms that have construction, and they go there, they find the issues, and then they fix the issues, and there's a big financial gain for them. We don't do that. We go out, we do the inspection, and we provide a non-biased opinion, and people are able to make the repairs and choose the contractors that they choose, that they want to choose, right? Because of that factor. And then also referring partners, it's like, we know the level of service that we provide, and it's hard to recommend people sometimes, especially contractors, because there's such a bad rep out there. I'll never forget when I was first starting in the inspection side. This was probably like 2018. I had a realtor that worked with us, and I inspected a house for her dad. She asks me, and she says, "Hey, look, my dad wants to build an addition. Do you have a contractor to recommend to do the addition?" And I knew this guy from church. I was like, "Oh yeah, this guy, man, this is a great guy. You could call him. I trust him to do your addition." So then, she disappeared after that. And then after like a really long time, I'm not too sure how long after that, she calls me, says, "Hey, are you able to get in contact with such and such person you recommended me?" I'm like, sure. I mean, I could call him. Yeah. Like, what's going on? Well, we gave him $80,000 to start to do an addition at my dad's house. And the guy kind of disappeared and never did any work. And then guess what, Ruben? That realtor never called me again.
Wow.
And even though I had no part in it, it's still that sour taste. It's like, oh, Louis led me to that guy. So it's hard. And TrueView is known for its service and the product that we provide and the integrity that we provide with our inspections, that I never want to taint that by referring people who would do a bad job for somebody. If I do a bad job for somebody, I have the ability to clean it up. But an $80,000 mess that someone made, I don't have the ability to clean that up. Right?
Wow.
So my biggest advice is, and if there's something that I want people to get away from this podcast, is the biggest issue that I see with these buildings are deferred maintenance. And here's the thing: you choose not to do maintenance or take care of your building the right way. So then when you go out there to do these recertification inspections, the issues that are found at the property are put into this form. You're legally required to submit this to the county. The county sees this and they make you pull permits for all of this type of work that you need to do. And things just get more complicated. And then you have to do another recertification inspection, certifying that these repairs were done to a good quality standard. All of these things could be avoided by going up there. If you have roof leaks, addressing roof leaks, maintaining your roof, taking care of termite issues at properties and concrete issues that properties may have, updating electrical systems as they come, hiring licensed electrical contractors to do the work. So the main thing is, it's like it gets a lot more expensive and it gets a lot harder when you have to go and these negative items come up on a recertification inspection, rather than you being proactive a couple years before you're due and doing the right maintenance to your buildings. This is like, especially on commercial buildings, it's like people don't have commercial buildings to live in them. People have commercial buildings to make money. But I remember I had somebody, a mentor in my life, that told me, and I'm going to say it in Spanish and then I'll say it in English. He's like, "Luis, acuérdate de algo." When I was doing my business, la semilla no se come, la semilla se siembra. Mm-hmm. The seed that you have in your hand, you don't eat the seed, you plant the seed. So pour back into your businesses, pour back into your buildings, keep on planting that seed so that you could reap that harvest later in the future.
Luis, thank you so much. You've been amazing. I really, really appreciate, and I'm sure all the listeners appreciate your time, all the nuggets of wisdom, information, clarification. You continue to be a pillar here in the real estate industry. And, well, wish you only the best and look forward to seeing you around the CCIM and the CCIM family, and as we continue to grow. And I'll make sure to include your email and contact information. If you want to say it right now, feel free to say it. And, I'm sure people will look it up, and hopefully they'll have some people they'll see or hear your integrity through this podcast and know that, TrueView is an amazing company to work with. So thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Ruben. It was a pleasure doing this with you. And I hope that we could help, real estate professionals and commercial professionals with some of the nuggets that we dropped here today.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thanks for joining us on CRE Cafecito, the CCIM Miami Podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to follow, subscribe, and share it with others in the commercial real estate community. Stay connected stay inspired, and as always, keep fueling success in commercial real estate.